Hi everyone, I'm happy to have my friend Michelle here from high school to have this interview with us. She's the business owner of this space, Paragon Tea Room. So we're just going to talk about volunteering and mentorship with her. So we're happy to have her share some experiences with us. So Michelle,
Hey.
why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So Kelly and I went to high school in Vancouver, and we both were born in Hong Kong. I guess born and raised in Hong Kong. So that's how we met each other. And then in university, I went to business school, UBC Sauder School of Business, and I specialized in marketing. After that, I did a few years of corporate job and decided to start my own venture, which is this tea business here. Yeah, that's pretty much my little background. Been in business for about 7 years now.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
That's a really long time.
Yep.
Okay, so maybe we'll get a little bit more details from you about how you came up with this idea of having this space like Paragon Tea Room, and then how you overcame all these challenges to create this business. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about your high school experience.
Sure.
So like you mentioned, we both came from Hong Kong as an English language learner. Like what kind of challenges or difficulties did you face when you first came here, and how did you overcome them?
Two things, right? So obviously the language barrier is your number one, which hindered how both of us, making new friends, settling down in a new environment, feeling like we're actually part of the local communities. So language was a number one barrier, and then which lead to not being able to network and make new friends at that point. And so how I overcame it, I would say that I was strategically working at McDonald's when I was in high school. The reason why I called it strategy was because that I knew the tendency of a language learner was to stick with people who speak your own language, because in a new environment, because you feel more comfortable, you feel like you don't get judged, you feel like you're talking in the same level with the person who's speaking your mother tongue. But that's not how you learn. You have the difficulty, you need to overcome it. You don't dodge it by staying in your comfort zone. So I had to create an environment where I had absolutely no chance almost to use my mother tongue, Cantonese at that time, or I mean still now Cantonese is my mother tongue.
Yeah.
So I applied to work at McDonald's because I had to speak English to all my customers. I had to use English to interact with my coworkers, and there's no other ways. Whereas if I didn't have that work experience, I probably would have stick with my friends who also just, came from Hong Kong to Vancouver to Canada at that time and not be able to learn at all. I'll say speaking and listening were the most challenging parts. I guess growing up in Hong Kong, we went to English school, but it's more so on just the reading and the writing. Speaking, it's the part that instantly differentiate you from being a foreigner to a local. And obviously, I'm not unhappy about my own identity, being someone who was born elsewhere and having this dual identity of I was born in Hong Kong, I'm still someone from Hong Kong, proud of the city, proud of my own culture, but I'm happy that I can at least call myself a local in Vancouver right now. Yeah.
Right, I guess being in an unfamiliar environment sometimes just makes you strive a little bit more, right? You go the extra mile to try to achieve your goal, which is really great. And I think that connects with your enthusiasm or your engagement within the school community too, where you volunteer a lot. Back in high school, we could never really locate her because you were so busy doing things during break or during lunch. I remember you were just flying around. You're a social butterfly.
I tried.
So I guess you trying to volunteer a lot within your community too helps you to improve your English skills and so on. Do you want to share a little bit more about why you decide to volunteer or just throw yourself into the community?
Well, I've always been quite social when I was growing up, when I was in Hong Kong, just part of our personalities. when I got here, I felt like that was probably be the most efficient way to feel like a local. Because you need to be with the community to be part of the community, right? So if you want to shelter yourself in your own little corner and only hang out with people with the same background as you, you're really locking yourself in a room. Yeah, if you can't be part of the community, then there's no way that you could let go of that obstacle that's blocking you, which is, you know, your language barrier and not knowing other friends. So volunteering for me and being active in school and community activities, that was the environment that I felt like no one was judging me because of my language barrier, because they know I'm here to help. And the focus wasn't on, hey, are you a local or are you a foreigner? It's, hey, we're doing this together. We're like, as a volunteer team, as someone who is, you know, working in a school club, there's always, you know, a goal of the event, a goal for the project that the team is working towards to. And so at that time, the focus was that it's a result of the work, and throughout striving to that result, things that we do together was how I started making more connections that, again, help with my language barrier and help expand a network that I didn't have at all when I first came here. So it was a really win-win situation for me. And also it's important for, you know, the community to know that, hey, even though there are a lot of foreigners coming from, you know, other countries to Canada, once we are in Canada, we are contributing.
Good. Yeah, that's I guess that's very brave of you to make the first step, to step outside your comfort zone, to throw yourself into the community, to volunteer, to give back to the community, right? I think that's really big, because that's what we want our students to do too, right? Not just focusing on your academics, I know, which is like what students usually just like aim for, but like contributing back to your community, helping others, or just developing that community around you, it's really important too. You mentioned like diversity, how like volunteering helps you network and like meeting all kinds of people. What kind of other skills or like experiences did volunteering give you?
Well, first of all, you definitely get a lot more out of what you give out when you're volunteering. That's number one thing that I want students to remember. You're not just like, oh, I'm selling my free labor. No, you get a lot more. You just need to remember that any experience that you get, whether it's from work or volunteering work, and it doesn't matter what kind of work that you do. You might be interested in fashion or filmmaking, but you're volunteer to, say like, for example, in a senior home to help take care of the seniors with that meal prep for that senior, for example. A lot of things during that process could seem like it's unrelated to what you will be, the professional field that you want to get into, but the soft skills, the people skills that you'll be learning, you'll be getting from that, those are not something that you can find from your textbook. And even if they teach you word by word how to be a sociable person, what define people skill, what define social skills in text, if you don't practice it with a real group of people, you will never be able to actually gain that skill. And that soft skill often go way beyond what you put on your resume. That's the first thing that your job interviewer would notice, is how you interact with them. Can you talk to them? Can you sell yourself to them? Can you interact with your coworkers like a good person? So sorry, I kind of went off a little bit.
Let me wrap it up a little bit.
Sorry, I was kind of trying to get back to what you were talking about, the importance of volunteering.
No, but it's actually really good because with this course, the CLC course that we're doing here, is that we want students to learn from different sources, not just from the textbooks or from the teachers. So that's why we're conducting all these interviews or getting them to learn from videos or different speakers. So it's great that you're mentioning that some skills you cannot learn from textbooks. Some of the skills you need to be gaining from other experiences, such as volunteering, right? And I think that it's really important for our students to know that by volunteering, you are spending a huge amount of time or even energy, right? But then the ultimate result is actually way bigger than what you put out And I think that it's a really important point of volunteering. So Michelle, maybe we could tie it back a little bit, like how maybe volunteering helps you pursue like or achieve your dream right now.
I think that through the amount of extracurricular activities I did in school, community volunteering, I was able to observe how other people do their things. So when you throw yourself out to interact with other people, you make sure that you don't stay within your own bubble. You want to observe. You want to see how other people approach certain problems, and that's how you learn from it. And sometimes a connection that you make from a random volunteer experience could be your next boss, could be your next coworker, or could be the future coworker that will introduce you or refer you to their company. So I remember that when I did a lot of volunteer, I did a lot of part-time throughout my academic years from high school to university. There was a business conference that I helped set up. And at that conference, obviously my role was to make sure that speakers were taken care of, and then the rundown and the logistic of the event was done right. And then I met an accountant who needed a bookkeeper when I was in first year, like 19 years old. 19 or 20, can't remember, too long. That accountant then pretty much like hired me on the spot as a casual hours bookkeeper. Even though I didn't end up going to accounting, I think that was a great experience for me to get to know, okay, well, that's the basic level of what being an accountant feel like, or in that field feel like. And if I did want to pursue that accounting route, then I had that mentor, that person who opened this door for me to lead me into that field, right? So like along the way, I can't say that there's a direct relationship between all my past experiences to where I'm at right now, running my own business, but all the people that I met along the way, a lot of successful other business owners, a lot of successful, professionals in different fields, really show me the personalities that they have to become successful. And maybe they didn't have any direct relationship to help me open the business, but because of the exposure that I had when I was, learning from them, communicating with them, I was able to kind of, I guess, absorb some of the important traits and skills that I see. Okay, if I want to be successful, I need to be this, and that. Personally, why I'm more active and I guess very sociable is because, learning from textbook to me, I'm sorry, it's a little boring. It's important to get the basic down, but it's different when you see a live example. And so I've always been better when I'm learning, seeing how people do their things. And if you always take a step back to analyze, to assess, hey, this person is young and he's already a director of this, and that. What did he do? Talk to them. A lot of these people are more than willing to share with you. They're not no one's gonna hold it back. If we can see the next generation being able to change the world for to a better place, why do we want to hide our skills? We love to share. I'm not saying that I'm a professional, successful professional. I'm just saying that if you have the opportunities, throw yourself out there to observe people that you think, that you admire, that you respect, don't be afraid. Talk to them. It doesn't have to straight up ask the question of what makes you successful. That's usually not the right question to ask. Approach it as if you just want to make a friend, and then the way that they interact, the way that they talk to you, you will definitely pick up traces of why certain people get to where they are. At the same time, when you see people that you feel if I were that person, I would not do what that person is doing. That's also part of your volunteering or extracurricular activities that you learn from someone else's mistake as well.
this actually ties really nicely with our capstone project, because all the grade 11s, you're going to approach your capstone project where you need to find a mentor really soon.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so like it actually ties in really nicely with our goal for our student is to like, you know, connect with the community. Like what can you learn from your community members, right? And when you're pursuing, I guess it's a journey, right? Like with how you pursue your career path or like what you want to do. Maybe you're lost right now, but like I think it's a journey for you. Just like Michelle, she has been working like having a few part-time jobs. Like she's trying to learn from different experience, where leads her to figure out what she wants to do. What like she doesn't like accounting, so like she tries to open up like a business, right? So like I think like why this capstone is really important is because like you don't learn from textbook, but you learn from your community and learn from your experiences. And Michelle, I guess like you mentioned mentors. When you open or like when you pursue this career path, you must have met some people who had a huge impact or influence on you. Can you share a little bit about them and how they help you to like lead you to here right now? Maybe just one memorable
Right.
mentor. Yeah.
Okay, just to add on to some of the points that Kelly was talking about. No matter what work experience or volunteer experience you're gonna have, it's the people that will connect the dot. You always want to be the best of yourself. I remember when I was working in McDonald's, I was only selling fries, selling hamburgers. You know what? That experience led me to TD. So I was able to be one of the youngest bank teller when I was in, I think it was first or second year, because McDonald had a good training system, and I was able to like survive at McDonald's selling burgers and fries for 3 years. And in the end of the day, it's the same kind of skills that you can apply to every single job against the soft skills. If you were able to get promotion within McDonald's from a regular crew to like team leader, that says something about you. And so from then, I started selling, you know, bank financial related product. And then after that, gone to real estate, but more like back of house. But like every single experience along the way, they're all somewhat connected. And that's what I was trying to touch base on, was you want to be the best of yourself. Because if you feel like, oh, this is not going to be my end career, I'm just going to do a mediocre job, this is bad. If you do a mediocre job there, your next employee or your next employer will probably spot something when you're having that interview, and when like maybe your first job where you did your mediocre work, that employer won't say something good for you to lead you to another, you know, good career opportunities that you won't really want to get into. So no matter what positions you are, whether you're doing job for, you know, as a volunteer, that you don't think you're getting a lot out of it, be the best of yourself and be nice to people. That will get you, like that will lead you to a long, it's a journey, like everything's connected. It will definitely, you will see the result in the end. And sometimes the connections are not happening right away, but the dots will eventually connect and lead to where you will be 10 years from now. So that's one thing that I want to touch base before I talk about mentor.
Yeah.
So mentor, I think in my first official like after grad job that job was actually my internship. It started from my internship co-op in Sauder School of Business, and I did 8 months co-op, and then the employer were happy with my performance, and I was happy to stay, and so he gave me a full-time offer pretty much right after I graduated. He was also a business owner, a small business owner in real estate, so obviously doing much bigger project than what I'm doing right now. I think his his persistence on making sure certain things are almost perfect before launching a project had a huge impact on me. Because, you know, for example, when you're making this table, this thing is supposed to be round. And if there's any rough edges and you decide to launch a product because, hey, I'm gonna spend another week to polish that edges, is it worth it? Well, it depends on what kind of reputation you want to build. If you want to stay at certain, mediocrity caliber, by all means. But if you want people to see you as someone that they trust in terms of, quality, your words, like every single little details, no matter it's like polishing the edge of the table to polishing your emails that you want sent out, that really does represent you. Even though you may be working for a company, you feel like whatever that you produce only represents a company. No, that represents you. So, which is something that I always tell my own team members, my own staff, it's that no one is perfect, but we can't stop improving. If we're happy, if we're always staying in the comfort zone or having that, it's good enough or whatever, that kind of mentality, that also is not gonna get you too far. Again, depending on what kind of lifestyle you want, but if there's a specific goal that you wanna strive towards, good enough, it's not good enough. And that's something that I learned from my previous employer, my boss, who still actually come visit my shop after I quit about 5 years ago. And he also provided a lot of flexibility for me, because there was a period of time where I was struggling between opening my own business and working for him. And I try to be the best. I try to be a good employee for him before I left, and I had to be a good business owner to get my business up and going. So I really appreciate that he supported the little, this little project that I have, and taught me a lot on how to do things. And it's never about, I wouldn't say it's never about the technical skills that you learn from a certain job, but again, what really stick and that you can apply to every single aspect of your life, it's always the soft skills. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, thank you. It sounds like Michelle, you learned a lot from your mentor, and he was able to provide you with a lot of advice or insights, inspiration for you to open up this business of yours. Can you tell us a little bit about how you have this idea to open a tea shop? I saw, I read it online, and I came to your shop before too, that because we were born in Hong Kong, I guess you want to bring this culture where East meets West.
Yeah.
This idea here. Can you tell us a little bit about what gave you this inspiration or this idea to open a tea shop? And I guess as Asian woman, having your own business is not really that easy too. As a English language learner too, I think you will be an inspiration for many of our students.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. But I think how I came up with this idea was that before Paragon, I did run a bubble tea shop, and from that, I guess I'll go really briefly on the bubble tea shop experience. So the bubble tea shop was really what sparked my interest in tea, because after a few years of running bubble tea shop, I realized that the tea components in bubble tea was not that strong at all. When you think about, okay, I want to actually taste a good cup of tea, that kind of concept isn't quite obvious when you're having a bubble tea. When you're having a bubble tea, you care more about the pearls, the toppings, how fancy the drink look. It's more like a dessert drink. But through that bubble tea experience, I was able to get access to the direct source of the tea supplier in Taiwan and Japan. And interestingly, in UBC, one of my friends that I met through a school club was, again, connecting the dot here. His family runs a pretty, well-known tea company in Japan, and that's how I started getting more access to Japanese tea, direct sourcing, so that I have better control over the quality and selection of tea. So I think the whole idea of tea here is that, especially in North America, it's always feel like something that's more taking the back seat when it's compared to coffee. Coffee is more cool, more young, more professional, whereas tea is it's something that I drink with my grandparents in dim sum, or it's that Lipton's tea bag we have at home that we never open. We drink tea when we feel like we're sick, and it's it's like herbal tea. There's a lot of pre-existing concepts about tea that's not quite favorable to tea, and I think that when as soon as I started digging more into the tea cultures and the history and all that, it's super fascinating, because when you think about tea, it had existed for as long as China existed, like 5,000 years, and it moved from China to Japan to India, basically through the Silk Road. You guys heard of the Silk Road, right? And that was a great representation of how culture is being spread and mix and match in other cultures. So when you think about tea, there's matcha from Japan, chai from India, Hong Kong milk tea from Hong Kong, bubble tea from Taiwan, London fog locally in Vancouver. Now think, one thing that I want to let people know is that London fog is not from London. If you go to London and try to order London fog, they're like, what are you talking about? We have a lot out there in the cloud, not in the cafe. But London fog is actually from Vancouver. You see that tea has evolved from being something that only represents one culture to when another culture get exposed to that product, the people there started developing their own culture around that product. And I think this concept alone is very fascinating, but somehow in North America, we're lacking that identity when it comes to tea, and it's often seen as something that is not as cool. It's more old school. It's like, oh, a straight boring steeped cup of tea back in hot water. Or the other end of the spectrum, it's like you get bubble tea, which it isn't quite focusing on tea, and there's nothing in between. And so I think there's a lot more potential to tea than what people could have imagined. And just because no one else is doing it doesn't mean there's no possibility, right? It's all about possibility, it's all about innovation nowadays. And so we're trying to prove a new concept using our own way, using our own special Hong Kong identity that we're so used to East and West matching together all the time. When you think about Hong Kong milk tea or yin yang is a drink that is so well known in local, the Hong Kong culture. It's that there's coffee and tea in it. You think two things are enemies or competition against each other? No, they can actually coexist. I think that concept alone is very important and has a great impact on me, is that if I wanted to push tea forward to the newer generation so that people feel like tea could also be really cool, what method can I use? What marketing approach should I be using to revamp the pre-existing, sometimes not so positive connotation of tea to the younger generation? So then when you go to a cafe, if you don't feel like getting coffee, you actually want to drink something that's closer to your own culture. You don't feel like, oh, but then my coworkers are drinking coffee. If I drink tea, am I gonna get judged? You know what? Be proud of your culture. And we can actually make tea really nice. And we can also tell people in North America that tea has a lot of potential. They haven't been exposed to a lot of different varieties of tea selections, and that's our role here, is that we want to showcase tea originated from different culture in different forms, but in a way that they understand. So what we specialize in is tea latte, which is the gap that I was mentioning about that we wanted to fill. Is that when you don't feel like a straight tea, you don't feel like you're a tea connoisseur to understand the depth and the delicate nuances of a straight brewed cup of tea, and you don't feel like having a bubble tea every day or every morning, what is that in between? And we hope to, like this product here, tea latte, it's what we think the medium could potentially be. And we're always being creative with our flavors, based on season, we have different choices for people, and it often represents different things, like different teas. Like sometimes we highlight chai, sometimes we highlight matcha, sometimes we highlight another Japanese tea that no one else has heard of. But it's okay, you just need to come try, you just need to come open your mind, forget about all these pre-existing concepts you have, and try a cup of tea, and eventually we believe that everyone will be able to find a cup of tea. Yeah, no matter what cultures you are.
I think what I like about Michelle is that like it's her determination. Like you can see that like she has a dream, she has a goal, and then she just goes for it, which is really great. Like I think like with everything, like what from from like when you were in high school, when you talk about your experiences, your volunteering, you had a goal. You want to, polish your skills with English, and then like you have another goal, with this business too, and then you just go for it, which is really admiring. And I hope like all the students can learn from this too, where when you see when you set a goal for yourself. Don't be afraid to try. I think like making that first step is the most important part, right? And I think like most of us will be hesitant or even be afraid of making that first step. But like I think Michelle is a great example here, where when you make the first step, you just never know what is going to happen. Because
look at you, from a language learner to someone teaching language. Right? It's also very inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah. So like thank you, Michelle, for having us. Like letting us interview you. I think like all the students, all the grade 11s, we're gonna learn something great. Like remember to connect the dots. Don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone. Even like throw yourself in a familiar situation, and you're gonna learn a lot. I think learning is just a journey, and you're never gonna stop learning. I think that is really important. Just with Michelle, she's still learning how to have her own business, right?
Don't be afraid of changes.
Yes,
changes are inevitable. Don't complain about it. Whenever there's change in your life, it is a great test for you to see how strong you are, how adaptive you are. So there's always something good in the bad, same as any experiences that you may have when you're working, when you're volunteering, when you're studying.
That's a great piece of advice. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Alicia and Hayson, for recording this session for us. If you're interested to explore or like let tea, try a cup of tea.
Let me impress you.
Let Michelle know. Like, come to Paragon Tea Room, and then she will introduce you to the East meet West kind of concept. Yeah.
I actually also serve bubble tea too.
Oh,
but in a different way.
I am sure the students will love it. Actually,
See you guys.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.